please subscribe and don't forget to press the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload a new video.
Celebrating 16 years of Young Turks.
Nasdaq-listed enterprise cloud computing powerhouse Nutanix, founded by Dheeraj Pandey, in March announced the acquisition of Bengaluru-based startup Minjar for a reported $40 to $50 million. Founded in 2012 by Vijay Rayapati, Anand and Aparna Sharma, Minjar is a B2B SaaS startup that focuses on building AI-powered products to help enterprises migrate to and manage their operations on the public cloud. We first featured Minjar on Young Turks in November last year. Little did we know that Vijay was in the midst of inking a deal with Nutanix then. Vijay, thanks a lot for joining us, and I believe that the last time we spoke in November, you were actually in the midst of closing off on this deal. So Young Turks brought you some good luck. Can I say that?
Yeah, of course. Thank you, Saina, for featuring us. It did help us get customers as well. So, happy to be back. Good to be talking to you.
Tell us about the makings of this deal.
So it's a very interesting story. So I met Dheeraj at 6 a.m. In a Starbucks in US. I was supposed to come back to India, and we got introduced through a common connections. And I met him. Then we both had a conversation, and we really liked each other and the vision that he has for Nutanix. So the meeting went for a couple of hours. Then he asked me, why don't you stay back and see, if we can, if there is something, right, between both these companies that we can do together. So it started at 6 a.m., went on till 11 a.m.
Okay.
And I was supposed to leave at 2:30 p.m. flight, and I cancelled my flight and stayed back. And then, the process started, and here we are.
So what were some of the common points besides both Dheeraj and you also having a common point in Trilogy? The PayPal Mafia has gotten pretty popular. So let's call you guys the Trilogy Mafia.
Sure.
But what were some of the other commonalities between Dheeraj's vision for what he wants to achieve with Nutanix and where the vision for what you were doing with Botmetrics really met?
If you look at what Nutanix is trying to do, is they're trying to reduce the complexity in data centers, right, in enterprise data centers. So there's a lot of complexity in managing networks, compute, storage, hypervisors, right. What Nutanix has done is they built a software with the intelligence that kind of makes it easy, so you don't need an army of people to manage even a large scale data centers. What we were trying to do is we were trying to build again a software to manage public clouds, right? Because as customers go and use Amazon or Azure or Google as a business, you still need ability to manage consumption across these public clouds, governance across these public clouds, compliance, operations. And another thing is Nutanix as a business is one of the it's once in a decade kind of an opportunity, which I wrote in my blog post as well, right? Because
I know a Goldman Sachs report recently called it that as well.
Yeah, because there are very few companies which started, went IPO in 9 years, do more than $1 billion in run rate, and become a market leader in their segment.
I'm sorry if I'm going to sound rude, but didn't you have those ambitions for Minjar
of course,
as well?
See, this is a dilemma for every entrepreneur, right? So this is not the first, time, because we were in a space that was very interesting space. So we always used to get inquiries. But I mean, one is like, we got like a lot of respect as a young team when we met, interacted. That is kind of a big selling point for me, as a founder to sell my company, because if they can treat people with respect, young startup, despite being a multi-billion dollar company, when we interact with large companies for partnerships and go-to-market approaches, a lot of times people think, oh, you're an Indian company, you're a small company, but we never kind of felt that, when we had these conversations with Nutanix.
How much of Botmetrics individuality will you maintain within the Nutanix ecosystem or universe of products and services? How much of your team will innovate and work on newer products, and will they be independent of what Nutanix is building? So in that sense, will Minjar maintain any part of its individual identity?
Actually, our CEO Dheeraj, right, keeps talking about autonomy, right. One of our principles inside the company is celebrate autonomy. Right. As a team, we are going to operate as a independent business unit within Nutanix, and we are going to continue to innovate on the product and obviously bring some of the goodness that Nutanix has. So customers have a seamless experience when they come and try to use the product. So the product is going to continue, and we are going to enhance it, accelerate all the things that we thought we wanted to innovate on the product side. We are going to accelerate some of them, but it will continue to be operated as a SaaS service going forward as well.
What about data privacy? What about security? And we've seen breaches of that of late. So are you looking at building targeted products? Is that part of the product roadmap or plan, pipeline that you're looking at developing?
A fundamental belief is also, as an industry, we always have the centralization and decentralization, right? If you look at mainframes, is a centralization, and client server is a decentralization. Now we have cloud, which is a centralization. Now with edge coming over again, decentralization is going to happen. The cycle is kind of repetitive. One of the things that we are looking at as a team is to see, how can we use, fundamentally new technologies like blockchain to, essentially improve security, not only of our product, but even for our customers, right? Blockchain is fundamentally decentralizes not only data, even the computing around the data, right? And it's very rarely technology like that comes in, right? And for last 10 years, the technology has been around. If it is still going strong, which essentially means it's going to become one of the foundational blocks for next generation applications, right? Intelligence will always be part of a software. Whether it's AI or ML, every application will gain it. But applications are fundamentally going to change. When you have to distribute your data, you can no longer centralize it, right? And we are a big believer. I mean, I'm a big believer personally in that technology. And the use cases for enterprise IT are still emerging, and hopefully we'll see some of them.
You hope to be at the cutting edge of that. All right, Vijay. One of the things that you brought up earlier, and this is something that we discussed back in November as well, when I asked you what was one of your big learnings in building a B2B SaaS company out of India, and you said that was realizing the funnels or the channels of figuring out go to market. How do you boil the ocean,
right?
or do you figure out a segment and then approach it? In the light of that and your 5-year journey at Minjar, Vijay, when you look back, what would you do differently in terms of the go to market?
Sure. I think the first thing is to identify, if you're a B2B SaaS company, you need to basically say, what is my ideal customer profile, right? Whom do I want to go after? Do I want to go after a large enterprise? Do I want to go after a mid-market? Do I want to go after an SMB kind of a customer base? Because your product also needs capabilities, right? Because if you're going after an enterprise customer, your product needs certain capabilities which are very specific to that segment. And within that, enterprise segment, again, you have to choose, do you want to go to early enterprises or a modern enterprises versus a legacy enterprises, right?
Correct.
Because the purchase cycles are different, their ability to work with young company will be, probably a little lesser.
What were some of your learnings, Vijay, in servicing Indian enterprises, some of the larger enterprises that you work with in India, vis-a-vis servicing and building products for some of your US-based clients, large clients there as well?
I think that the great thing about Indian customers is they helped us, improve our product faster, right? So if you look at our journey, we started with Indian customers. The amount of feedback that we get from Indian customers, and they obviously have high demand, which is a good thing because that helps you improve your product and refine it faster. And when we took this product to some of the US, customers, most of them felt like, okay, the product is already mature, it's polished, and it works for their needs. In India, it takes a little longer to close the deal, especially if it's a large enterprise, versus in US, you might be able to do it faster, right? As a country, we are a very value conscious economy, right? What happens is, customers want more, for less, which is a good thing, because in a SaaS business, end of the day, that is the major differentiator for companies, right? How can you deliver more value at a lesser cost, right?
Let's circle back to the conversation around the acquisitions. And I have the reports and the numbers that you believe you've raised close to about $2 million in your journey of about 5 years. A very efficient number, if we can put it that way. And reports suggest that the sale to Nutanix happened in the range of 40 to 50 million dollars.
I can't talk about it,
Okay.
but 2-3 things I want to kind of say. I think we tried focusing on building a capital efficient business, right? That was our goal from day one.
Correct.
So we haven't raised too much money, and it was kind of part intentional, part our inability to raise money. Had opportunities to raise more money, but we also did not took those opportunities because VCs are in a business of making money, right? Because if somebody is going to put 10 million, then he expects a 10x kind of a return. And as an entrepreneur, you also need to know, whether are you in the right market, right segment, can you actually, deliver that kind of an outcome, right? And in a B2B, compared to B2C, I think B2B SaaS businesses can be a little more capital efficient.
Customer money is better than the venture dollars, right?
But having said that, we were funded by Bloom, Emergent and Contrarian, a lot of angels. A lot of people helped us. We even took money from a school teacher as an angel investor.
Tell me that story. How did a school teacher, Miss Nancy Landra, get interested in botmetrics?
So my co-founder was in Austin. His son used to go to this school where she was a primary school teacher for his class, and she became a family friend with my co-founder Anand, and she heard him pitching to investors over a phone multiple times trying to raise money, and she said, I want to invest in this company, and that actually increased our responsibility as a team, because she wrote the largest check. Actually, she wanted to put in more money. We said, no, don't take risks. But I'm glad, it worked out for her and for us, for all of us.
When you look back at your journey now, how much of it is for an entrepreneur being at the right place at the right time?
I think you need everything. See, you need talent as a team and as founders. You need skill as a team, and and obviously then you need help of circumstances as well, right? And we also stayed for long enough, right? So there were like a lot of moments in this journey where we thought this might not go anywhere. Should we try? And even VCs made offers to me asking, start a fashion e-commerce, will fund you, things like that. But we kind of stuck to it, right? Because I only know B2B business and I don't know anything about B2C.
But what are the markers that you see now that make you optimistic about where we are heading?
Yeah, I think one is I see a fundamentally difference in entrepreneurs focusing on real businesses rather than trying to build too many copy models. India will be to B2B SaaS what Israel was to security companies, right? So Israel created like wave of security companies, and we genuinely believe India will create next wave of B2B SaaS companies. But obviously the regulatory hurdles have to help these entrepreneurs, and even VCs have to take early bets. We could not raise $100,000 in India, so we have to go outside India to raise our first $100,000. So because it's a function of multiple things. One is, are there any indicators of successful exits and successful businesses, so that it generates interest in financial investors, right?
With your exit, you've created that benchmark.
We played a small role.
And maybe you can play a bigger role. Are you looking to don the hat of an angel investor, do for others what Nancy did for you?
We have to, all of us have to play that role, and as entrepreneurs, especially when we have resources, and hopefully I'll do that.
Tell me one story that without that crucial help at a particular point of time, you would not be sitting here today.
So once we ran out of money, so we could not meet our payroll. So then
At what point was this?
This was very early. It was like within the first 12 months of our journey. And then I called Pallav Nadani, and so he sent money within 24 hours. Otherwise we would have been out of the business. Right? I just met him as another entrepreneur. It's not like we went to the same school, and we had a lot of those valley of death. Right? I mean, every company will have, whether big or small. But there were like a lot of moments where we thought we won't survive. But when you believe, and when there are people who can help, a lot more companies will succeed. That's my hope for all of us in Indian ecosystem.
Well, Vijay, thank you very much for this conversation. Really appreciate you speaking to Young Turks. Keep watching. Coming up after the break, we're going to be in conversation with Sunil Mahale, the Vice President and MD for Nutanix here in India. That's going to be an interesting conversation around what he's spotting in terms of growing the business here in India, as well as the role that he had in perhaps having the first meeting with Vijay and spotting their opportunity ahead of time.
Celebrating 16 years of Young Turks.
Described by Goldman Sachs as a once-in-a-decade opportunity, Nasdaq-listed Nutanix is one of the fastest companies to reach $1 billion since inception. So what is this once-in-a-decade opportunity? It's creating a new industry segment with hyper-converged infrastructure, or more simply an enterprise cloud operating system that delivers a seamless experience across management of public and private clouds. India is an important strategic market for Nutanix. Not only does it house its second largest R&D center outside of the USA, Minjar is also Nutanix's second acquisition from India following Calm.io in 2016. I'm in conversation with Sunil Mahale, who heads up business for Nutanix here in India. Sunil, you've been overseeing Nutanix's opportunities and growing the business here in India for close to 2.5 years. Yeah. Before, Vijay had the opportunity of meeting Dheeraj in the US at a Starbucks at 6 a.m. in the morning. I believe that you had already spotted Botmetrics and Minjar here in India.
So I don't know if I can take credit for that, but definitely I met Vijay and the Minjar team before this acquisition happened at one of the cloud events that we were doing jointly. So I keep joking with Dheeraj, saying that I think I spotted Vijay and Minjar, and then you just acquired them later on.
All right. So so let's pick that thread up. So you mentioned a cloud event for industry, servicing startups and even large enterprises here in India for Nutanix. What is the roadmap as far as business acquisition is concerned?
So India is no different as a market than if you compare to mature market. In fact, to me, India is more advanced in that sense because customers are always on the cutting edge of technology. They want to be disruptive, they want to be on the leading edge, they want to try new things out, like cloud. If you look at the adoption of cloud, if you look at the adoption of building enterprise clouds, all of that is happening in India at a much rapid pace, and that's where we have seen a lot of success.
For you here in India, what's the split as far as servicing startups, or I mean, if you want to club startups and small medium businesses versus large enterprises is concerned? What's the split right now?
The earliest success was rightly said, startups and the ITITS segment, the technology vertical and service providers. They were very early adopters of this technology. I would say that still contributes to a large percentage of my revenue, upwards of 30+%. Then we have banking and financial services industry. I think they are also very early adopters of technology. If you look at all banks today are either modernizing, or they have modernized, or they have plans of modernizing in future their whole data center, right?
Can you talk us through in the banking and financial services space, because you brought it up, some of the bigger clients that you're servicing, that you're working with, and I also want to put this in the context of data and security. Last week, the RBI said that data centers and all data must remain secure and in India. Given the complexity now with the cloud, the immediate question was, and there is this imagination perhaps of people who don't understand the space too well, that if something is on the cloud, that means it's outside the country, resting, in the US or elsewhere.
So when banking financial institutions are adopting cloud, either public or private, I think what we are seeing more and more customers asking questions about security, compliance, governance, and most either they go to public or private, but those three are the overarching concerns that they will always have. And what Nutanix has done is, if you can't go to cloud for all these reasons, can you bring cloud to you, right? And that's the best of both worlds, because now you are actually bringing cloud experience to your data center. That's why some of our large financial institutions, largest private sector bank, largest stock exchange in India, they're all deployed this technology because they fundamentally saw benefit of bringing that cloud-like experience back to data centers.
And taking that forward, you've gone as far as in a couple of blogs calling this infrastructure as a service, right? You're taking it above software as a service and platform as a service. And in that vein of creating infrastructure as a service, you've also spoken of governments being and the kind of services that they are now looking to met out to citizens with increasing digitization, not just in India but around the world. What are some of the solutions that you're looking to build out from that perspective of infrastructure as a service, and Nutanix heading it up, so to speak?
I think we see a huge spend happening where they are revamping all the state data centers, the fundamental power development and reform projects that is getting a lot of visibility now. Then obviously the smart city initiative that's being driven, the UID initiative that is being revamped. So all of them, there's one commonality between most of these government projects is really they are all building their own private cloud, right? With collapsing data centers down in software. But that's what our vision is, to really help customers deploy, develop data centers and software. And what Nutanix has done with all these various government organizations is, I can't name all specific projects, but in most of them, we are now in a policy influencing capacity to really help customers and government understand as to NIC is one great case in point, state data centers is another case in point, UID AI is another large initiative that's going on. So we are actually engaged in multiple divisions to help them understand the benefits of running data centers and software. And while still retaining security, but they're all extremely concerned about security.
I know.
Right? And if you look at Nutanix, has built most of the security features into the product, not as an afterthought. So it really helps customers understand the benefits of overarching security, not just data security information, but the entire end-to-end security of your applications.
Global scheme of things, Nutanix, how big is the India market for Nutanix? How much does it contribute to global revenue share?
So India is I mean, because our founders are Indian, two companies are quite obviously have been started here. India is a huge strategic hub for Nutanix, right? We have multiple business units function in India. I mean, there's sales and business development, there's engineering and R&D and shared services, and of course the acquisition we have done, Calm and Minjar as a part of it. Plus we have a large team focused on global system integrator business. We are a significant contributor to the global business. Obviously we don't divulge exact details, but the customer acquisition has been growing at a rate of 10x year on year from what we started off earlier. So I think that's where we see India as being a huge important market for Nutanix. For all the other reasons I mentioned, not just sales, but sales, engineering, shared services, and a huge strategic M&A target, right? Which is why the two acquisitions happen.
Give us an insight into some other interesting startups in this space that you've met with and that we should probably profile on Young Turks to get the good luck going for them too.
Oh gosh, I think there's tons of startup work happening in India in the space of cloud, AI, analytics. I think that's the other hot area that's coming up. Cloud-based data warehousing platforms, I think that's the other big wave that anybody's looking at, not just us.
Is there competition for Nutanix being built out of India?
Oh wow.
That whole platform? Are you seeing it? Are you hearing it from clients?
I mean, Dheeraj always says that we are extremely paranoid as a company, right? And we are worried about the next startup, if you will, that could come after a garage. It could be from India, Israel or US, it doesn't matter. But that's why we all really talk something about founders mentality, and that really boils down to having three things, right? One is the obsession with frontline, having owner's mindset, and having the insurgency.
All right, Sunil, thank you very much for joining us.
And thank you so much.
Celebrating 16 years of Young Turks.